Hello, hello. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the Feral Brand Method podcast. So glad you guys are here listening as I drop more feral content every single week, like I do. So make sure you guys subscribe to the podcast so you can learn everything about being feral in your personal brand and making sure you step into your brand as that feminine feral leader that you know you are. So, little housekeeping. If you haven't listened to the prior episodes, I have joined a licensing venture with my coach, Tay Daniels, where I am licensed under her trademark, the Breadwinner Energy, and the Feral Brand Method, and her methodology are intertwined. And I go ahead and teach women how not only to step into honing their identity and knowing who they are, but also being that feral feminine leader in their personal brand by strategies using their birth chart and the three big elements in their birth chart so they can be feral in their content. So if you don't know, I am a visibility alchemist, and that's what I teach women to do. How do I teach them? Because I've done it myself. And I have honed in on my own personal elements in my birth chart, and I have just gone feral in my content. So, and yes, I fucking cuss in my content because I know some people, get offended with that, and I don't care. So make sure you guys follow along and make sure you follow on TikTok and on Instagram at the Feral Brand Method. So everything will be linked in the show notes as well. So let's get into today's episode, where I'm going to be discussing the Feral Brand Method, how I built an authentic brand. So this episode is going to be about me and how I got to this journey of doing what I do and doing what I love. So I'm going to be sharing with you my trial and error and just the journey through all that. I'm going to share with you how I tried to be professional versus being like a real, raw, authentic person. The shift on being more bold and opinionated because I'm just like that by nature anyway. And what does feral feminine leadership actually mean, and why authenticity, I can't even say the word, builds authority. So I'm going to be doing a little storytelling today. So make sure that you get your comfortable blanket and your favorite drink while you're listening to this, or make sure you have AirPods if you have children. Okay. So how I built this authentic brand. Now, I know when I originally started doing entrepreneurship 3 years ago, I had no fucking idea what I wanted to do. And I knew I wanted to start a business because I was divorced. I was broke. I was miserable and I was depressed. And, that divorce really financially wiped me out. And on top of that, I have special needs kids. So what that requires is a lot of money for a lot of, medical bills and therapies and things of that nature. So I just was really tired of the whole 9 to 5 bustle and hustle because I knew there would be a better way. And this was at the time where COVID was like running rampant. And of course, by industry trade, I am a CT technologist. And yes, I was on the front lines of the whole pandemic. And I can tell you it was fucking awful. And it's something that I never want to experience ever again. And just knowing through that, like, I knew I wanted to do something different. I didn't want to walk into the hospital anymore because I would literally have to coach myself in the car just to get out of the fucking car. So I had started creating courses for one of my brands that I had created from the ground up. And I did have a TikTok page at that time because I joined TikTok during the pandemic to kind of like keep my mind busy as far as the depression and all the anxiety that I was suffering. So I started developing courses and saying, I could probably help other technologists because I had always been told that I was a good instructor and I was a good teacher. So I started doing that and started making content on TikTok, and some things didn't work, some did. And I was always trying to be just like all the other creators in the same space. But I came to find out that that fucking doesn't work because you can't go ahead and you can't mimic or copy somebody else's strategy if it's not your own because it's not your voice, right? So I finally said, you know what? Maybe I need help. So that's how I partnered. One night I was scrolling through TikTok and I saw a video with my now coach, Tay Daniels, and she was promoting like this challenge or whatever. And she says, go ahead and follow me on Instagram. So I gave her an instant follow and I kind of started diving into her page. And I said, this is exactly what I need. I need somebody to help me because I had no business. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I know I was just creating courses, but like, what is it that I do? And so I joined one of her master classes and immediately I knew I was in the right space. I said, if anybody's going to help me on how I should build a business, this is the person. And through that container, I went ahead and built that first brand, which now runs on its own. But I had to test a lot of things and a lot of things did not work. And a lot of, courses, this course didn't work, this live didn't work, that masterclass didn't work, this didn't work, this challenge didn't work. So I had to just figure out through a lot of trial and error what worked. So then as that one kind of just ran on its own, and I was still at the 9 to 5 at the time. And so then I decided, I don't want to do this anymore. I actually want to help women because she helped me build a personal brand. I actually want to do this. And I love astrology. That is one of the things that I've loved ever since I was younger. I could really build a personal brand where I can help other people just be feral in their content. So a friend of mine had reached out and said, hey, I'm having a problem being more visible on TikTok. Like my sales are down. I need help. So in one weekend, I said, okay, what's your mission? What's your vision? This and that. And so we pulled the entire birth chart. And this is somebody who is very bold. They are a leader and they also are very grounded in making sure that they build community. So these were all the elements in this person's birth chart. So I went ahead and said, okay, this is your brand. And I just started writing out different types of content strategy for him and how he should implement the elements in their birth chart so they can go ahead and create content from that. Within 72 hours, that person made a $20,000 sale. So I said, I could really do this. So I started trialing and error some things, and some things didn't work, some did. But the methodology, which being feral in your brand, being feral in your content, and using your birth chart as a blueprint stuck. So that's where I started helping other women do. And of course, I tried to be professional instead of being real. So I started being real in my content, and that's when people started to resonate with it. Okay. And I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't have so many bold opinions. Maybe I shouldn't have that. I started shifting my thinking to, you know what? Who fucking cares if they don't like my opinion? Who fucking cares if they think I'm just too wooey and spiritual? Who fucking cares? I'm just going to do it anyway. That's how a friend of mine got those $20,000 in sales. $20,000 in sales. Because I said, this is the hot take you need to do. This is where, because I'm like, let me do a little digging. And I would look for similar creators in that same niche and say, okay, where is the gap in his content? And then I would look at his page and do a content audit. And I say, okay, this is the problem. This is where you need to hone in. You see this, you need to do more of this. And that's how I was able to help this person out to make 20K in their personal brand. Okay. When it comes to being feral and feminine and being a leader, okay, that means you know who you are, you own the elements in your birth chart, and you lead with those elements. So if you have fire elements, you lead with leadership, you're bold, you have opinions, and you don't give a fuck. Okay. If you are like a Taurus, you are grounded, you thrive best when you have community and you are emotionally just neutral. If you have water signs, you lead by emotion. So you have to be emotionally grounded and in a neutral place before you execute, because you can't execute out of chaos. Okay. And when it comes to, if you have like those air signs, so you have passionate ideas and you lead with that. So you have an idea, you run with it. That is what feral feminine leadership is. When you lead by example, you lead with your identity and you do not have any fear of being visible. Authenticity is always going to build authority, because when you are a raw, authentic person, that's how people see you. When you are raw and vulnerable and you own your fucking truth and this is your identity, you're not fake. That's how you build authority with clients and in your personal brand. So make sure If you're having a visibility problem, download the 5-episode audio series, The Visibility Activation. That will help you, give you the steps to being more visible in your brand and in your content. So that is the episode that I have for you guys today. I hope this was insightful. So make sure you share it with another woman with a personal brand that needs to hear it. So thank you so much for joining me on this podcast episode, and I will chat with you guys in the next episode.